grew up thinking rich looked like something, a certain car in the driveway, a certain zip code, the vacation that needs a photographer. But the wealth that actually lasts doesn't announce itself. It looks like a Thursday night with nothing happening. A transfer that cleared this morning you've already forgotten about. A regular life from every angle. And the first thing that separates the people quietly building it from everyone else has nothing to do with how much they make. It's the distance between what comes in and what they actually spend. Sign 1. You have a gap between what you earn and what you spend. You get the email on a Tuesday. 3%. Effective as of the 1st of next month. You do the math in the elevator on the way back to your desk. The $1,860 more a year, $155 a month before taxes. Call it $112 after. You think about it for the rest of the afternoon. Not obsessively, just the way a number sits in the back of your head when it hasn't found a home yet. Your coworker Daniel gets the same email. You know, because he mentions it at lunch. He's already decided. He's moving out of his place at the end of the lease. Nicer building, one more bedroom closer to downtown. You nod. You don't say what you're thinking. What you're thinking is you're not moving. Not because you can't. Because you did that math too, a long time ago. And you know how it ends. The nicer apartment becomes the baseline. The baseline becomes the minimum. And 2 years later, you're making more than you've ever made and wondering why nothing is accumulating. You've watched it happen. You've done it yourself. Once, at 25, when you upgraded your car 6 weeks after a raise and spent the next 14 months feeling the exact same financial pressure you'd felt before, just wearing nicer shoes. So this time, you do something quiet, something that takes 11 minutes and requires no one's approval. You log into your account, find the automatic transfer you set up 8 months ago, and bump it up. Not dramatically, $80 more a month into the separate savings account. You named something boring so you'd leave it alone. You close the tab. You go back to work. Nobody notices. Daniel talks about the new apartment for the rest of the week. You listen. You don't feel superior about it. He's not wrong to want what he wants. You just want something different. You want the gap. That's what it is when you strip everything back. The distance between what lands in your checking account and what you actually spend. It sounds simple. It is simple. It's also the thing most people accidentally close the moment they get a little more room to breathe. Currently, the average American saves less than 5 cents of every dollar they earn. Meanwhile, their spending quietly expands to fill whatever space the paycheck creates. A slightly better version of the same life, consuming the same percentage of everything that comes in. You're saving closer to 14. You didn't get there dramatically. You got there by not moving when Daniel moved, by not upgrading when the upgrade was available, by treating the rise as something to redirect before it had a chance to become a new normal. The transfer confirmation comes the following Tuesday. $83 and change moved automatically at 7:04 in the morning while you were in the shower. You see the notification when you pick up your phone. You dismiss it, not because it doesn't matter, because it matters exactly the right amount. It's supposed to happen. It happened. Now it's done. This is what the gap looks like from the inside. Not a strategy, not a sacrifice. A decision made once, automated, and then left alone to do its work. And the first time you really feel what that gap has built isn't when you check the balance. It's when something breaks and you realize the math has changed. Sign 2, a $1,000 emergency. Doesn't scare you anymore. The call comes on a Wednesday morning. You're already at your desk when your phone lights up. Unknown number, local area code. You let it go to voicemail. 4 minutes later, you listen to it. Your car is ready. The total is $847. You put the phone down, you go back to your screen, you finish the email you were writing. That's it. That's the whole moment. It wasn't always like that. 2 years ago, $847 on a Wednesday morning was a different kind of phone call. It was the kind where you sat in your car in the parking garage and ran the math with your eyes closed. Which card had room, whether you could split it somehow, whether the mechanic would take 2 payments. $847 used to be a problem that required a solution, a thing you had to manage, a thing that left a mark. Now it's just an inconvenience, a number you'll move from one account to another before you leave for lunch. You pick up your car after work. The guy at the counter hands you the invoice. Brakes, rotors, labor, $847.12. You tap your debit card. He asks if you want the itemized receipt. You say sure. You fold it without reading it and slide it into your back pocket. On the drive home, you stop for gas. You think about what you want for dinner. The $847 doesn't come back up. Not once. This is the thing nobody explains when they talk about emergency funds. They give you the number. 3 months of expenses, 6 months if you can manage it, and they tell you to keep it somewhere you won't touch it. What they don't tell you is what it actually buys. It's not security in the abstract. It's this: a Wednesday that stays a Wednesday, a problem that stays the size it actually is instead of expanding to fill all the available anxiety in your life. Currently, nearly half of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency from their savings, not because they're irresponsible, because the margin isn't there, because the gap between income and spending never got wide enough to leave anything behind. When a surprise expense hits without a buffer, the problem doesn't stay $847. It becomes $847 plus interest, plus the decision made under pressure, plus the 2 weeks it takes to stop feeling it. You have 3 months covered. Quietly, in an account with a boring name that you check maybe once a month, usually when you're waiting for something else to load. The balance doesn't excite you. That's the point. It's not supposed to excite you. It's supposed to sit there, completely inert, until the Wednesday morning phone call comes, and then absorb it without drama, the way a good shock absorber does its job without you ever noticing. Your friend Rachel calls that evening. She got the same kind of call last week. Transmission, $1,100. And she's still talking about it, figuring out the credit card, feeling the weight of it. You listen. You don't say what you're thinking, which is that the difference between her week and yours isn't luck. It's the account, the one you funded slowly, quietly, over 18 months of transfers nobody congratulated you for. You don't say any of that. You just listen. And after you hang up, you sit with the particular quiet of knowing you're moving in a direction most people around you aren't. And lately, that same quiet has started showing up in a different way. Not in how you respond when money leaves unexpectedly, but in the moment just before you choose to spend it at all. Sign 3. You said no to something you could actually afford. The message comes in on a Sunday night. Group chat. Your friend Priya, the one getting married in September, has found a bachelorette destination. Nashville. 4 nights. The breakdown follows 3 messages later. Flights, hotel split 6 ways, dinners and the activities, a total at the bottom. $1,400. You read it twice, not because you can't believe the number, because you're already doing the other calculation. The one that happens automatically now, the one you didn't used to have. You have $1,400. That's not the question. The question is what $1,400 does from here, and which answer you can live with. You put your phone down, you make tea, you come back to it. The thing about this moment, and you've been in versions of it before, the concert that costs too much, the group dinner at the place nobody asked if you could afford, is that the pressure isn't coming from Priya. Priya doesn't care. The pressure is ambient. It lives in the assumption that, of course, you're going. The same way it's assumed you got the new phone when it came out. The same way it's assumed you splurged on something when the tax return hit. The assumption is that when you have the money, you spend it. That's what having it means. You used to believe that. Not consciously, just operationally. The money was there. So the thing happened. Raise came in, lifestyle expanded to meet it. Every time, almost automatically, like a tide responding to the moon. What changed isn't the money. What changed is the pause. There's a moment now between wanting something and doing anything about it that didn't used to exist. A beat where you ask yourself a question you can't quite put into words, but that feels something like, does this move me closer to the thing I'm actually building? And the answer either comes clean or it doesn't. For Nashville, it doesn't come clean. So, on Monday morning, you text Priya separately. You tell her you're so happy for her and you're going to sit this one out. She responds with a heart. The group chat moves on. By Wednesday, nobody mentions it. You take the $400 you would have put toward the deposit and move it to your Roth IRA. It takes 4 minutes. Your phone doesn't buzz with congratulations. The market doesn't react. Nothing marks the moment as significant except the small, private knowledge that you made it. This is what discipline actually feels like from the inside. Not deprivation, not sacrifice, just a preference that got clearer over time. You still want things. You wanted Nashville. You wanted the 4 nights and the group dinners and the particular ease of spending without thinking. But you wanted the other thing more. And you knew it before the tea finished steeping. Currently, wages are up about 3.5% over the past year. On paper, everyone around you has a little more room. In practice, most of that room gets filled immediately. A nicer version of the same life. Spending that expands to meet whatever has just arrived. The raise absorbed before it had a chance to become anything else. You've watched it happen to people you respect. Smart people, people who earn more than you. Still stretched thin at 31 because every increase in income found a matching increase in outflow. The pause is what breaks that pattern. The pause is what makes the space. And in that space, without announcing itself, something has been accumulating. Quietly, automatically, in the background of your life, whether you're watching it or not. Sign 4. Your money is working while you sleep. You set it up 14 months ago on a Sunday afternoon. 40 minutes maybe? You opened the brokerage account you'd been meaning to open for 2 years, linked your checking and scheduled a transfer. $500, first of every month, into a low-cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500. You didn't tell anyone. There was nothing to tell. You just closed the laptop and made lunch. That's the whole origin story. Since then, you've thought about it maybe a dozen times. Once, when a coworker mentioned his portfolio at happy hour, he picked individual stocks, checked them daily, has opinions about earnings calls. You nodded and didn't say much. Once, when the market dropped 6% in a week back in the spring, your phone filled up with notifications you didn't ask for. You opened the app once, saw the number was down, closed it, and transferred your $500 on the first of the month like always. And once, about 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday night when you couldn't sleep, and opened the app at 2:17 in the morning just to look. The balance was up, not dramatically, but higher than the month before, and higher than the month before that, and it had gotten there without you doing a single thing except not stopping. That's the part that still catches you a little. You've put in $500 a month for 14 months. That's $7,000 of your money in there. But the balance is higher than $7,000. The part you didn't contribute, the part that just appeared, that's the machine working. That's the index returning what it returns, compounding on itself, indifferent to whether you're paying attention or not. The S&P 500 has averaged around 10% a year, going back nearly a century. Nobody can promise it continues. But the long game, held consistently, has never required genius. It has required only one thing: staying in when everything in you wanted out. You stayed in during the spring. That matters more than the 10%. Your coworker Kevin sold in March. Not everything, but enough. He told you about it at lunch, the way people explain decisions they're still trying to justify. He got back in 2 months later, after the recovery, at higher prices than when he sold. He doesn't talk about it anymore. You don't bring it up. You think about the math sometimes. The way you think about things that are too slow to watch but too important to ignore. $500 a month, every month, for 20 years. At 7%, the conservative number, the inflation-adjusted number, that's roughly $260,000. At the historical average, closer to 10%, somewhere between $340,000 and $380,000. You will have put in $120,000. The rest arrives without you lifting a finger past the initial setup. The rest is just time doing the work you refuse to interrupt. There's a version of wealth that requires constant attention. Research, timing, opinions, and risk. That version exhausts most of the people who attempt it. And then there's this version. Boring, automatic, completely unimpressive at any given moment. Quietly, over a long enough timeline, devastating in the best possible way. You check the app once a month now, sometimes less. The balance goes up. You note it and close it. The 500 moves on the first. The machine runs whether you're watching or not. What's harder to see, and it took longer to notice than any balance or transfer, is what all of this has started doing to the way you think about your time. Sign 5. You've stopped measuring your life in money. The offer comes through on a Thursday afternoon. You read it twice, then set your phone face down on your desk and stare at the wall for a minute. $11,000 more a year. Better title. Bigger team. 90 minutes each way. You don't say yes that afternoon. You don't say no either. You go home, make dinner, and sit with it the way you've learned to sit with things. Not forcing the answer, just letting the question settle until the real shape of it becomes clear. By Friday morning, it's clear. You turn it down, not dramatically. You send a polite email, thank them for their time, and close the tab. You pour another coffee. Your Friday continues. The version of you from 3 years ago would not have made that calculation. 3 years ago, $11,000 was an argument that ended the conversation. You would have found a way to make the commute work. You would have told yourself it was temporary. You would have bought a better podcast setup for the train and called it a reasonable trade. But somewhere in the last 2 years, without making a formal decision about it, you started measuring differently. Not income in, but hours out. Not what the job pays, but what it costs. And 3 hours a day on a train, 3 hours that currently belong to you, to spend however you choose, those aren't free. They have a price. You just finally started charging for them. This is the shift that's hardest to explain to people who haven't felt it yet. It doesn't show up in your bank account. It doesn't have a number attached to it. But it changes every decision downstream. The meeting you decline because it could have been an email. The Sunday morning you protect it like it's a financial asset. The Tuesday night you leave deliberately empty and feel genuinely good about that. You pay someone to clean your apartment now. $130, twice a month. Your friend Greg thinks it's absurd. He cleans his own place, spends a Sunday afternoon on it, and talks about the money he's saving. You don't argue with him. You just know that those 3 hours on a Sunday are worth more to you than $130. You know what you do with them. You know what they produce. And you know that Greg, for all his frugality, is trading time for money in a direction that will quietly cost him more than he realizes. The median net worth for Americans in their mid-30s sits around $135,000. Most people at 30 are still grinding toward that number, still optimizing for income, still believing the next raise will finally create breathing room. You're not there yet, either. Not by the numbers, but you're tracking differently. Not because you earn more, because you've stopped treating your hours as the thing you sell and started treating them as the thing you protect. It's a lonely recalibration sometimes. The people around you are busy and proud of it. Packed calendars worn like credentials. You used to do that too. Fill every hour. Glorify the grind. Perform productivity like it proved something. Now you crave the empty space. You schedule nothing on Sunday mornings on purpose. You let the silence be there. Nobody congratulates you for that either. But something has been shifting underneath all of it. Something that only becomes visible when you stop looking at what's coming in and start paying attention to everything you've quietly stacked up. Sign 6. Your net worth is growing, even when you don't feel it. You open the spreadsheet on a Sunday in February. No particular reason. The coffee is brewing, your phone is in the other room, and the laptop is just there. You pull up the tab you haven't touched since October and start entering the numbers. Checking, $3,200. Savings, $8,400. Brokerage, $11,340. 401k, $22,100. Car loan remaining, $14,000. You do the subtraction. You write the number at the bottom. Then, you pull up October's entry. You hold both numbers in your head for a moment, not comparing them dramatically, just looking the way you'd look at two photographs of the same place taken in different seasons. The difference is $18,400. You didn't get a windfall. You didn't flip anything. You didn't have a month where everything broke right. You just did the same quiet things every month for 4 months, and the number moved anyway. Moved without drama. Moved without you noticing until just now, on a Sunday morning with the coffee still brewing. This is the sign most people never reach, not because it requires more discipline than the others, because it requires a different way of looking entirely. Most people measure their financial life by what lands in their checking account every 2 weeks. Income becomes the scoreboard, and when income grows slowly or doesn't grow at all, it feels like nothing is happening, like standing still on a moving floor. But income is just the water coming in. Net worth is how much is actually in the tank. Currently, about half of Americans can't tell you what their net worth is. Not because they don't care, because nobody taught them to look at it, and because the number, when you first start tracking it, feels too small to take seriously. At 31, $30,000 doesn't feel like wealth. It doesn't feel like something you'd mention. It doesn't feel like progress you could point to and have anyone understand. But $30,000 growing, measurably, visibly, month over month, is a completely different thing than $30,000 sitting still. One is a balance, the other is a direction. Your college roommate Brian earns more than you. Meaningfully more. You know this? The way you know things about people you've stayed close to, from the apartment he moved into, the trips he takes, the casual looseness in how he talks about money. Last year, he mentioned he had no idea what his net worth was. He laughed when he said it, the way people laugh at things that make them slightly uncomfortable. You smiled and changed the subject. You check yours every 3 months, sometimes less. You don't obsess over it. You don't log in during market dips to feel the damage. You just open the spreadsheet on a quiet morning, enter the numbers, do the subtraction, and note whether the direction held. It always held. That's what this number does. Tracked consistently over time. It stops being abstract. It becomes evidence. Evidence that the gap is real, that the buffer absorbed what it was supposed to absorb, and that the pause before the purchases added up to something you can actually measure. Every decision from the last 2 years is in that bottom line. The transfer that went through on the first. The repair bill didn't spiral. The trip you didn't take. The commute you didn't accept. All of it sitting there quietly in a single number on a Sunday morning. The coffee is ready. You close the laptop. You pour a cup and stand at the window for a minute. The number won't make tomorrow easier, but it means tomorrow is building something. What it actually means, you close the laptop and the number stays with you. Not loudly, just there, the way a true thing sits. None of this felt like progress while it was happening. The transfer on the first, the repair bill didn't spiral, the trip you didn't take, the offer you turned down. Each one felt like a small decision made in an ordinary moment. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it is. This week, something routine will happen, a purchase will almost happen and then won't. Notice that pause, the space between wanting and doing. That's where everything is actually decided, not in the big moves, in that second. The hard part is that knowing this doesn't make tomorrow easier. Moving in a direction most people around you aren't. That quiet doesn't go away. But here's what stays with you now. At what point does the life you're quietly building become the life you're actually living?